Morning. I'm Anthony Sizemore, the police chief with the Cape Coral Police Department. I'm here to talk about two specific incidents, the first of which involves the team behind me. We had a murder back in June of this past year, almost a year ago, and at approximately 4:30 in the morning, Cape Coral Police Department officers responded to the 1800 block of Southwest 10th Terrace for reported gunshots. When our officers arrived, they located a 41-year-old man, later identified as Fernando Batista Montero, deceased in the driveway from apparent gunshot wounds. Our investigation commenced right then and there, from our patrol officers handing off to our major crimes unit, who are with me today. And the major crimes unit began this investigation and very quickly learned that there were two suspects. Now, both of these suspects, we later learned, came down to Cape Coral specifically for this incident. They executed our victim, robbed him, and immediately fled, not only Cape Coral, but the state of Florida. They became two fugitives, unknown at the time, and very quickly our detectives established one suspect. And after countless hours of investigation, they were able to establish probable cause for our first shooter, Jose Alberti Maldonado. And roughly a month after the shooting in July, Maldonado was located and was arrested for second-degree murder and robbery with a firearm. But our investigation wasn't done at that point. We still had a second shooter that we had to find. The second shooter was only identified by a nickname. That's all we had to go on. Through painstaking work of old-fashioned detective work, putting feet on the street, talking to witnesses, poring over digital evidence, forensic evidence, our team was able to paint a picture and identify our second subject. Our second suspect was, again, not in the state of Florida. And by fortune, last week, we caught a break in the case, and our second suspect was located, or we knew his whereabouts, was in the Lexington, Kentucky area. So last week, late, at the drop of a hat, our two detectives here from Major Crimes boarded an airplane and flew to Cincinnati and then drove to Lexington, where they met with the Lexington Police Department and their peers in the industry, the homicide unit for the Lexington Police Department. We had been working with Amira Fox and her team at the State Attorney's Office throughout this investigation, and we knew what we needed. It wasn't simply land in Cincinnati, drive to Lexington, and grab our suspect. There was still ends to tie up. There was still very difficult, painstaking threading of a needle, if you will, to be able to get the probable cause that we needed. But the talent of this team behind me came through, just like the community would expect them to, and just like we were depending on them to. And they delivered, and probable cause was established, and our second shooter, Eduardo Ramon Trochet Rodriguez, was arrested for second-degree murder. He is currently awaiting extradition back to Lee County, Florida, where they will then face trial from the talented prosecutors of the 20th Judicial Circuit in Amira Fox's State Attorney's Office. This morning I personally met with Mr. Montero's family, and it was a bittersweet meeting. There were tears. Obviously, their loved one is still gone, and the talented investigators and all the hard work that was put in cannot bring him back. But what we can deliver is a little bit of peace, a little bit of closure, and they mentioned to me this morning that they are now just able to finally get a decent night's sleep. They were very concerned with two murderers out in the community, in the United States, free after their despicable act. They were at peace, and the detectives met with them in my office and talk about the rest of this case. This was an unbelievable effort by this team, from, like I mentioned, old-fashioned detective work like you'd believe, new technology, award-winning forensic technology. One of the forensic techs just won our Civilian Employee of the Year based on this particular case, the painstaking work that was put in. But that's about 50% of the work, because the remaining work is preparing for trial and working with the State Attorney's Office further to get real closure. And real closure is putting these two murderers in prison. So I'm thankful for the community, because there was some evidence and forensics that we were able to get from our partnership with the community. That's in our mission statement, that we partner with them. And this is what it looks like in action. It's not just a poster that you see in the lobby. It's not just a platitude, but working with the community is actually doing something and partnering and taking testimony and taking physical evidence and taking digital evidence and putting it into action, and that's what this is. It's the first step. So I'd like to thank the community for that. I would like to thank the Lexington Police Department for their assistance and their warm welcome for our detectives to be able to go there and make the second arrest. I'd like to thank the United States Marshals Service Fugitive Task Force, of which we are a partner and a member. But they network throughout the country, and their work was integral in for us to be able to get both of these suspects who fled the area. I'd like to thank the State Attorney's Office and Amira Fox and her team for being with us on this case and every case, every step of the way, and working in true partnership, because the goal is not just today. The goal is when we talk again after conviction. I'd like to thank our elected officials for providing us with the tools that we need, the resources that we need, both human resources and physical assets to be able to do the type of work that you and the community expect us to deliver on. And we couldn't do it without the partnerships we have with Mayor Gunter and Council. And last but not least, I certainly want to thank my dedicated team of professionals that are up here today. This case wasn't me. It wasn't the other administrative personnel that are here. It's these men and women up here that work countless hours and miss Little League games and don't sleep themselves and pour hours and hours into these cases. I couldn't be more proud to be standing alongside them today, and I'm grateful. But it's not a celebration because they have many more cases that they're working on. This is their life. They're involved in this every single day. But I do want to take a moment to thank them, acknowledge them publicly, and I think it's important for the community that we acknowledge cases like this. This is a strange one because it really flew under the radar, which is unique. I mean, we had a pretty brutal murder that happened in Cape Coral, and it got attention, but it was short-lived. But it wasn't short-lived to these folks here. So I wanted to circle back and highlight that.